Okay, so the other thing I wanted to talk about was something that a lot of people, at least the people I know, do not really think about or don't really realize it until they think about. But as a big, lifelong sports fan in general, but we're going to keep this with wrestling, that has influenced lives in more ways than one. Like, that's my main topic here, is how has professional wrestling influenced your life? Not just as for those listening that might actually be in-ring performers, but just as fans or whatever. Like, an example I can state recently is when I started training and grappling at my dojo and whatnot, and now I start to recognize I was recognizing holds and techniques and stuff that I see in pro wrestling that I actually have seen used in MMA, that I myself have used in my grappling. Didn't think about it, when I'm sitting there watching it, but now that I'm in a different spot, that influence comes to me, where it's like, especially recently with watching Davey Boy Smith Jr. and knowing his background as a catch wrestler.
Yeah.
I spot so much stuff in his wrestling that I spot that I do in my grappling. And we met Shamrock and Severn today watching some of their old stuff. And not just their MMA stuff, their pro wrestling stuff. It's stuff that I've seen, influence that I've used myself. I remember when The Undertaker came back in around 2003-ish, American Badass type, where he openly started using MMA influences. Stuff that eventually I've caught, like, hey, I do. Which also helps me, as I stated earlier, have a newfound appreciation for people like Ryan Taylor and
It's Taylor Russ, by the way.
Whatever his name is this week, whatever name is on his contract.
No contract.
Dude. And Timothy Thatcher.
Wait, hold on. Doesn't that guy look like Ken Shamrock right there in the car?
No, the car's clean.
No, looks like Al Bundy. It does, doesn't it? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
And somebody else, but I forgot.
Russ Taylor, Timothy Thatcher.
Well, I forgot the other guy.
Okay.
And that's one thing. Another thing that I didn't realize, but not until I got older, music. Pro wrestling has found me a new appreciation for music. Because growing up, I was just, hey, I was into the oldies classic. My dad, loved the 70s funk sound and whatnot, going into the 80s R&B era. My half sister was into 90s rap or whatever. So that's just what I grew up around, was the rap hip hop funk sound. But then I hear Demolition's theme, and I think that is to this day, one of the best original wrestling themes of all time. Hearing that, and it was a metal sound, but that got me hyped when they came out with their look. And again, here comes the smash. And keep in mind, I grew up on WWF, so I did not know the Road Warriors existed yet. So just seeing that look with those guys and that music, ooh, you know, like that hits you. And then, you know, I didn't think about it till later, but like the Ultimate Warrior's theme, that, you know, with the guitar riffs and stuff like that. And later on, growing up, when I started watching the old NWA tapes and seeing old NWA footage back when we didn't have to worry about a copyright law, and hearing, without a doubt, was, I think, I don't want to say one of the greatest entrances, but once you see it, it's one of the greatest visuals. It's just the Road Warriors walking down that Starcade stage where the steps lit up and you had Iron Man on in the back. That was a visual. And moving on later into the WWF, where especially around I'll say around the 2000s is when they started really, well, before I get there, ECW, same thing, where they were we found this out later, for those that didn't know the business practices, but they were illegally using the music, but they were so under the radar that, you know, nobody noticed until they started getting licenses and stuff like that, and they had to kind of change music around and whatnot. But that's, you know, what introduced me to, you know, grunge and metal and a completely different sound outside of just like wrestling themes. Just a completely different sound and a completely different culture. So, you know, with these guys like Sandman and Tommy Dreamer and everything, Enter Sandman, with that entrance, you know, the famous Sandman entrance to that song, Tommy Dreamer, Man in a Box, Raven coming out to The Offspring,
come out and play,
you know, just all that, Bam Bam Bigelow coming out to Guns N' Roses, Candido to AC/DC,
Taz coming out to War Machine from Kiss.
Yeah, and eventually with, especially like in the 90s, with the wrestling albums, not the wrestling album was Jive So Bro, shout out to Slick, but the albums that came out later that had, you know, like the WCW album that came out, which wasn't the greatest album, but they started having guys like Sting coming out to Seek and Destroy. They had, you know, and you hear that guitar riff in the beginning. The Insane Clown Posse, who I only knew from their short stints all over the place in wrestling. And then Vampiro's coming out to like the baddest theme, one of the badass themes that they got.
Almost made me a juggalo with that.
Yeah, almost.
I mean, I didn't ever put the hatchet face paint on and run around like an idiot, but
I was bumping that song.
If it was up to me, I would never tell you. I would never. I love that song.
And of course, we have to mention it: Hollywood Hogan, Jimi Hendrix.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Voodoo Child. Oh my goodness. And I marked out, not to get off track, but at that end of that episode of WandaVision, I was marking out. I was going old school air guitar when I heard that song. But yeah, definitely. And especially around the 2000s when WWF started licensing out, you know, that's when they had Kid Rock, American Badass, and then eventually they moved to Limp Bizkit Rollin', especially like that new metal sound.
WWE loved the new metal sound.
Yeah, I mean, come on, WrestleMania 17, My Way,
Highway. Yeah, Fred Durst.
And the way they use that song in that video package to Austin and Rock is iconic. I'll say that. That's one of the most memorable video packages to a match.
Yep.
And it's just set perfectly to that song. And also, let's not forget, back in around 2002, 2003, that watch, they would do these, I think they were the Desire videos.
My Sacrifice.
Yeah, like, they did My Sacrifice. I remember they did this one they did this one video for The Undertaker that just like highlighted his whole career. The infamous one with Beautiful Day on YouTube for Triple H's return. I mean, and then that's when they started every month. They started having a new song as the theme for the pay-per-view instead of before where it was just they came up with their own stuff.
Yeah.
Who could forget SummerSlam that the bodies hit the floor with and funny enough, because this is a story in itself, when Lemmy died from Motorhead, one of my co-workers, he's a big metalhead, but it just never worked out for him to see Motorhead live. Every time there was an opportunity, he was either busy, he was out of town, didn't have the money, or especially as he got older, he just didn't like dealing with big crowds. So he just never got the opportunity, and he hated my guts because I was at WrestleMania 21 when Motorhead performed Triple H to the ring.
With the Ace of Spades, right?
No, this was the game. Triple H's theme.
Right.
That's how I discovered Motorhead, was Triple H's theme of the game, and then moved into Evolution and the other Triple H theme he had, Bow Down to the King, and later on, when he got control of NXT, that's when he used Ace of Spades for one of the shows. But he was pissed off because my coworker does not like wrestling. He's one of those guys that I get it for what it is as entertainment. He can't get past the fact that it's a fake sport, in his words. Yeah. So he hated the fact that because of wrestling, I did something he never did, and I actually saw Motorhead perform. It was not a concert, but I saw them perform live, and I needle him with that every time I can. But just as a whole, pro wrestling has opened my eyes to different cultures through music. And you never think about it until you actually just sit down and think about it. Like, wow, all this I'm listening to, all this, and everything came from professional wrestling. That is a big influence. Along with another thing you can mention, and this will be the last one, and I'll take a break, but just hearing the stories of people, of the guys in this business. Again, no different than any other sport, but when you hear the background of why they do this or how they get through this, so inspirational at times. And at times where, especially when, people don't know what they're going through, and they look and they see somebody else who they watch on TV and they open up and whatnot. Like, for example, Goldberg will never go down as the greatest in-ring technician or the greatest in-ring wrestler of all time. He will never go down as that. But for somebody in my shoes, I think he has one of the greatest comeback stories.
For sure.
And especially with the fact that when Goldberg had his original career, he didn't have a son. Goldberg didn't have kids. That was his afterlife. And Goldberg came back for his son to see him perform. And Goldberg at his age, I think he's 54 now, but it was like he was either 49 or going into his 50s when he initially made the comeback with Brock, that series. And just what he did to come back and do that for his kid, so his kid can see him.
And this, you're talking about the comeback from just a few years ago, not the WrestleMania from about a decade or so.
No, like I said, when his wrestling career was basically done after that last WWE run, he went off and he had his family and whatnot. Yeah. His son never saw. He saw Goldberg the dad. If he saw Goldberg through the wrestler, it wasn't live.
Right.
And he did what he did. Goldberg did for his son to see that, and to teach his son a lesson about, working hard, accomplishing the goal and whatnot. He went out and he showed him. That was inspirational to me, because for me to get back, and I'm not talking myself up like I'm some big, great champion or nothing like that. No. I just, I went in with a goal, and I wanted to not just talk to my kid, my son, and tell him, you got to work hard for a goal.
Yeah.
You got to put in the work. You got to go through the ups and the downs to achieve your goal. And I showed him, and he saw it with me in my mid to late 30s, trying to go back on this mat when I haven't been on it in 20 plus years, not since freshman year of high school. And work hard, put in the work. He's seen me struggle, he's seen me sweat, he's seen me lose my confidence or whatever at times and question myself. And for me to go out, and I just wanted to prove that, hey, you can do this. Look at Dad. You have the youth advantage on Dad. These other guys have this youth advantage or the strength advantage or the experience advantage on me. I just happen to win twice. 2 tournaments. That good luck for luck for me. I had the horseshoe in my back pocket. But hearing that story kind of, I don't want to say it inspired me, because I didn't hear Goldberg's story and go like, I can do that, but it's something that really made you think, and really, I can't find the right word, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Where it's something where you can look at and it's like, okay.
It's relatable.
Yeah, relatable. That's the thing. So, those are things off the top of my head. Now, how do you feel professional wrestling has influenced you in your life?
I mean, look, I don't have the same experiences as you, right? Because first off, as much as I have preached the same gospel that you're sharing with your son to my daughters about working hard and never giving up on something, like, I don't have that background where I actually went out and did something, in terms of athletics. Now, like you, I was an athlete in high school, and I was the most athletic non-athlete there ever was. I was a 3-sport athlete, football, wrestling, and track, and I was horrible at all 3 of them, but I never quit. And that's the same kind of mentality that I've always tried to impede on my children. Is that the right word, impede? That sounds like a bad word. That's what I tried to share with my children. I want them to realize that, you have to work hard. So in that respect, we share that, but outside of that, the same experiences, like the music, right? You mentioned the music, your ears were open to new sounds. These are the sounds that I grew up with. This was the music that I listened to. So when ECW had, Raven listening, or coming out The Offspring come out and play, like that was a song that I was already listening to. Man in the Box is still one of my favorite songs. You know, in WCW, like there were knockoffs like Diamond Dallas Page was coming out to Smells Like Teen Spirit, and Chris Jericho was coming out to Alive from Pearl Jam. Like these were my jams. Like all these songs were I was already listening to, so I didn't have that same experience either. But I guess the two ways that wrestling has, being a fan of professional wrestling, has changed my life is that I've established this community, and I have friends all over the world. I'm not just saying in the United States, I'm not just saying in California. I have friends all over the world. Some of these people I consider brothers, and I've never even met them face to face. And some of these guys who I've been friends with for the last, you know, some of them are just as recently as the last year or two. Some of them I've known for like over a decade. And I wouldn't trade that for almost anything. I mean, I've salt of the earth people, and I don't mean that in a sarcastic MJF way. I mean, these are good human beings, and we come from different backgrounds and have different philosophies on life. And although the conversation starts about wrestling, it never really ends. And you know, DKM and Jaden and Kevin Frazier and Lamb, and I can go on, and Tim, and so many folks that I've met through wrestling, Larry and a Big Chi and Gary Horn and Rob Stinson and Will and all these people who, you know, some of them I still haven't even met. And there's this camaraderie and this brotherhood and this community, and I think it's pretty awesome. And you know, earlier you had mentioned something about, you know, people have these replica title belts. You know, I didn't buy my belt, I earned it. And in some ways I really relate to that. Not that I went out and wrestled for that, for any of the belts that I have, but I didn't buy one of those. I didn't buy a single title belt. I've never spent money on a title belt. Those were gifts from wrestling fans, from friends, from this community that's been created. And I cherish those gifts because it's like, wow, not only did you think enough of me to send me a belt, but I mean, none of those are cheap. Not one of them. So like that's one way my life has been positively influenced by pro wrestling. This community that we have, this YouTube channel, the places that I've been able to travel in the name of pro wrestling. Like, you know, we've talked about it on this show. I've talked about it on other podcasts. I mean, I went to freaking China with Dave Marquez and Dave Lagana and Nick Aldis, Colt Cabana, and I got to hang out with those dudes for like 5 days. I sat next to Heather Monroe all the way to China, man. And you know, you get to meet, obviously you get to learn more about people, and you get to learn more about the people beyond just the pro wrestling. And, you know, Watts, I got to hang out with Watts, and I got to hang out with Reno Scum, and all three of those gentlemen now I consider friends. And I don't even know if Reno Scum would recognize me off the side of the road, but I know Watts would. And that, again, it's the community, it's the back and forth, and that was an experience that I don't think I would ever change.
To add to that, because you said China.
Yeah.
I mean, while my culture was music, yours was, you know, through your travel. I mean, pro wrestling has taken you places that like you said yourself, you probably wouldn't have been elsewhere.
Oh, for sure.
With, you know, I mean, you go into another country in China, I doubt you would be making your trips to Mexico for Crash.
No.
If you know, without pro wrestling. I mean, I don't know to speak on where, like, outside of like family vacations or something like that, where you're in different states or whatever, you know, because not everywhere is like California.
No.
You know, you were in different states like Atlanta, you know, which is a completely different culture than, you know, where we live.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, you know, that again, you probably because you were talking about people, but that's one thing right there is your culture is like you are exploring the world.
Yeah,
Wrestling is helping you explore the world,
and that's a solid point. Like again, Wenzhou, China, Atlanta, Georgia, Nashville, Tennessee, Charlotte, North Carolina, Tijuana, Mexico, Yuma, Arizona, Las Vegas, Nevada. These are a few of the cities I've been to watch wrestling. And I think it's fun for me. Like it is really cool, and I have no jokes. You know, we were planning to go to Scotland in 2020, when the pandemic first kicked off. We had made all the arrangements. We paid all the flights. We're gonna go to Scotland, and I literally told my wife, "Hey, there's a wrestling promotion out there called Scottish Wrestling Alliance, and hey, guess what? They're running on the Friday night that we fly in. You know, we flew on a Thursday. It would have been a Thursday. Yeah. Can we go to the show on Friday?" She says, "Well, you can go." I said, "Fine." And that would have been one more place I would have seen pro wrestling. Unfortunately, that didn't come to fruition. But when it does, I mean, I'm still planning to try to visit out and see some pro wrestling.
If you do not come back with a kilt, dude, I'm gonna get on you about that.
Brother, I already got a kilt. I wear it on the weekends and holidays. It's the Kaylee Tartan. Okay, I don't wear it on the weekends because obviously I'm wearing jeans right now. But you come Christmas time, get some eggnog going on, and we'll see what happens. Anyways, pro wrestling. So in that sense. It's enriched my life in that it's given me the opportunity to travel the way I have. It's given me the opportunity and I say travel, right? Let me rephrase that, because it's not like wrestling is affording me this opportunity. I'm not getting paid to go travel. I'm paying to do the traveling, but it's an added bonus. It's the cherry on top of a sundae. Being able to say, like, yeah, man, I when I went to China with Dave Marquez and company, there was no way I would ever go to China without that reason. So, I mean, that's pretty, copacetic. And then the other part, too, is it's allowed me to express myself in different formats. Again, we've got a YouTube channel now that's ever so close to 1,000 subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, go to youtube.com/The Alliance Blog and hit that subscribe button. But then also, I fancy myself a ringside photographer, taking photos of wrestling shows. I'm filmography. I'm filming wrestling. I have an IMDb page because of pro wrestling. I got to be in 2 wrestling documentaries based on the National Wrestling Alliance and the 7 Levels of Hate between Adam Pearce and Colt Cabana because of wrestling. So in some ways, it has enriched my life.
Definitely with, I would say, the hands-on education that you're getting. I mean, you're getting some experiences that I would say some people will have to pay to go to college to learn, where you're kind of learning it on the spot, being a content creator, as far as like what we're doing now with like a podcast, or you with the visual cast. I don't know what the technical term is.
Called vlogging.
Well, that, and hey, and also, you've passed that knowledge on.
Yeah.
So, people are learning from you what you've been learning through pro wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's not really until you actually sit down and think about it, like, wow, my love for this has done so much for me that it's almost until we have this conversation that you don't even really think about it, because it's almost secondhand that you don't think about. It's something you just don't think about. I mean, it's amazing how that is.
It's true.
And one thing you did mention about your community and whatnot, I use this pretty much with mostly all sports, but the pro wrestling fandom, we are passionate. And one thing that is very, very funny when you think about it is that, especially with the way the world is today, where the world is so divided, where you're not, we don't have to go heavily, and this is not a political show.
Never will be.
But just the way the world is divided because of different opinions, different backgrounds, different cultures,
different ideologies.
Yeah, just different, just the way it is. But all you have to do, and pro wrestling is a good example, that is something that we all have common ground on, is our love for this. And that you wish was a template for the world, where, hey, find some common ground.
Yeah.
Pro wrestling, we have common ground. Different political beliefs, different races, different physicalities, whatnot. And we can all sit on a show and enjoy ourselves. The rest of the world is canceled out.
Yeah.
Because we found our common ground where we love what we are watching and we love what we're participating in.
I mean,
and we can cancel everything out and we can all enjoy ourselves. You look at, all my friends, you're grouped in that as well. Different backgrounds, different age groups, different races, different cultures and all that. I mean, we would be like a stereotypical village people where none of those guys have anything in common except the music. When you just look at them, at their gimmicks and their presence, none of them have anything in common outside of the music. And that's pretty much us.
Because one of them is an Indian, another is a police officer, another one's a fireman, and I think there's like a cowboy.
I don't know. I mean, maybe the better example would have been the Dudleys.
Greedy.
Yeah, but
I've always told people my group of friends is kind of like a bag of Skittles, because we have every different fruit flavor combination, and we don't like racial ideology, background, culture, all that stuff. It doesn't really. It never really rang a bell with any of us. We're just more like, are you a good person? Do we have similar interests? Let's go. And like even today, like we stood in line for an hour, and I despised everyone in that line until about 5 minutes before it went in.
Yeah.
And the guy behind us, who had been annoying the entire time, started talking about Marvel movies, and I'm like, all right, now I got a new
boom,
friend.
we found it.
And it didn't take long. And we talked for about a good 20 minutes before we walked in. But that's how wrestling, that's kind of how wrestling fans are. And, I jokingly say I despised everybody in line. I didn't, just Oscar. Everyone else was fine. Sorry. No, Oscar's a good guy. Something like that. Peace to the Wrestleheads. Don't come after me. Don't cancel me. Just subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're all good. But it's just one of those weird dichotomies because, as someone who sits in this crowd of people who I don't know anyone there but Darryl, and Darryl and I have known each other for about a decade now.
Yeah,
as we sit there I'm an introvert. I don't really need to know everyone there. I don't really need to talk to everyone there. And you get some people who want to talk to you, and you're like, nah, nah. Like the girl in front of us.
Yeah.
Nah. But then, it's a weird dichotomy, and this whole, the minute someone recognized I was carrying 10 pounds of gold and was looking at the names on the belt, like, shit, I'm Chatty Cathy, and all of a sudden I was telling everyone about everything. And that's just how kind of what wrestling does for people in general. It gives us community. And I think that's really special. Like, Darryl and I, we met through wrestling. I would say our friendship extends beyond wrestling, but that's certainly where it was based out of. And the fact that we could still call each other friends some 10 years later just means it's we did something right. And in terms of being fans and having open opinions and listening to each other's opinion on stuff. And even though he hates, Switchblade Jay White, it doesn't mean that he's a bad guy.
I don't hate Switchblade.
And just because I hate Nick Aldis doesn't make me a bad guy.
No, it just makes you hungry for some ham sandwiches.
Ham sandwich. We raised $88, and these are profits, not what we raised in terms of sales, but in profits, revenue. The money that I made from selling those T-shirts went to the Juvenile Diabetes Research Fund, and I was very proud to know that the Alliance blog, alliance-wrestling.com, was able to raise $88 based on Nick Aldis talking shit in a YouTube chat. And honestly, I don't have any ill will towards Nick Aldis. I was telling you earlier, his first run as world champion was still one of the best runs that you could have as a world's heavyweight champion. And he earned all my respect in that first run. So what if the guy only defended that title 5 times in the next 5 years after? But he did a lot for the brand. He did a lot for the title. And that's all we'll have to say about that. We can move on. I don't want people to think I'm a Nick Aldis hater.
Nah. Just, it's no different than, it's every person, we're not all perfect. We all have our flaws.
Oh, yeah.
And, hey, take the good with the bad and whatnot. And again, it's just one person's opinion. And we're not like the wrestling fans where I break it up where there's a casual fan, somebody that tunes in and watches the show.
Yeah.
Then you have your more than casual. I can't really think of. I'll say a standard fan, somebody that watches the show and will peek online or whatever. Read that. Then you have your hardcores, who they're the ones that they're the ones that go out and buy all the merchandise. They're the ones buying all the toys. They're the ones that really buying tickets to the events whenever they can. The ones that really following the wrestlers and whatnot and whatnot. The ones that really put a time and effort into it. And then you have the cult,
the tribalism.
Yeah. And this is not the cult of Cornette. That's not the pun here. But you have the cult, which is those people that act like they're on the dang payroll. Those people who act like it is their job and mission in life to spread the narrative of their company.
Bro, I'm feeling attacked right now. I'm going to be honest. You coming after me?
No.
Because I mean, I did that for 10 years at the NWA.
No. See, here's the difference. You are at least... There's times where you get like that because you don't have the full context of everything in front of you. You're just going off like what you hear.
Sure.
But I'm talking about the people that you yourself have had criticism of the NWA.
Oh, yeah. Lots of it.
You're willing to admit and see that, hey, this ain't perfect. And when you see a criticism, you don't try to shrug it off like, oh, well, this company here did this company here did that. We're not talking about them. I'm focusing on mine.
Yeah.
Right here.
I mean, I was being facetious, but I totally know what you're talking about. There's the tribalism where, like, oh, I'm an AEW fan and everything else sucks. Or, ooh, I'm a WWE fan and everything else sucks. Like, no, man. Like, none of it sucks and all of it sucks at the same time.
I mean, Dash, I keep wanting to call him Dash, Dax Hardwood from FTR, formerly The Revival. Oh, that's what that stands for. That's what I just got that right now. Said In 1997, I was a fan of both the NWO and the Hart Foundation.
Yep.
You're allowed to like more than one.
Girl, same.
You know, and I posted something on Twitter similar, like if this, in the Twitterverse, which unfortunately has more bad than good, if this was 1997, it would be illegal for me to like both the Hart Foundation and the NWO, and there would be somebody pissed off that I didn't mention the Triple Threat or the Nation.
Wait, so you're telling me that you like the Hart Foundation, but what about the Boricuas? What do you have against Puerto Ricans?
Yes, it would have been twisted like that.
And the crazy thing is about that is, like, I mean, for all of us who are out there doing the Too Sweet with Hall and Nash, we're still popping when Stone Cold came in and stunning Vince McMahon. I mean, let it go, guys. Let people enjoy things. If you want to be an AEW fan and that's your wheelhouse, awesome, bro. Enjoy it. But don't tell me I'm wrong because I like the NWA or because I like MLW or hell, if I like the WWE. There's room for it all. It's Baskin Robbins, baby. Every flavor's up for options.
And don't try. My other thing that I openly admit I was guilty of until I got away from it. Please do not try to be too smart for your own good. Do not sit here and try to overanalyze everything. You're never, ever, ever going to get the 100% perfect product. You will never get it.
Coming after.
But I mean, even as great as ECW is remembered in rose glass, and whatever they said,
rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah, rose-tinted glasses. As great, as people want to remember the Attitude Era.
Oh, God.
It wasn't perfect, guys.
There were a lot of flubs.
Yes, there was a lot of flops, a lot of flubs. We want to remember more, the good more than the bad. But seriously, it's like, especially people these days, and this really, irritates me with the AEW conversation is...
This one or the next one?
Keep going.
Okay.
With the AEW conversation is how people are too wrapped up in trying to spread their narrative to make their company look better.
Yep.
First, let's be honest about it. Before the Monday Night Wars, wrestling fans never heard a damn thing about ratings.
Nope.
Ratings were never talked about. Ratings were never discussed. We weren't talking about that. Outside of those that read The Observer and heard Dave Starrs. Nobody talked about ratings. But then, ratings became a thing. And, for the fan it was good because it caused both companies to compete at their best. But the inner talk with the fans, with ratings and stuff like that, then I think this happened towards TNA because that's when smart people wanted to start tracking ratings and stuff. And the rating for TNA became the same. So then, and again, this was the time where I was on message boards and stuff. Like I said, I'm guilty. So then that's when we start talking about viewership. How many people watch the show since ratings are an average? How many people started watching the show? Oh, well, more people watched it here than ECW here and whatnot. It's like, you know what I mean? And then now the narrative's changed again to now where it's about demos. Where now everybody is in the last year and a half, 2 years, became a demo expert. When the only time demos were talked about before in wrestling is in retrospect with Eric Bischoff talking about being different than the WWE, where WWE was targeting kids. He went after that adult audience. But now everybody's talking demos. Like, oh, we won the demo. And it's like, what? At the end of the day, what does that really mean to you when you're watching it on TV.
Yeah.
And it's gotten so overboard. I remember still, and it hit an emotional part with me. This is like the smart Mark part of me that wanted to come out. It's like Chris Jericho did a promo on Dynamite explaining what the demo was, explaining what a television demographic is, so he could get over his demo god nickname, since he lost the title, so he was no longer Le Champion. So his new name is Demo God, but he had to do a promo talking about how AEW, about the ratings, and but the demo is what's more important for this and for this and for this. And since now I'm the Demo God, and I'm like, you really did a promo for that? You really had to explain that to the viewers? Just to get over a nickname?
And the thing about it too is like, look, those numbers are important to the financials for the WWE, and those numbers are important for AEW. But I guarantee you that I never looked at the show and thought, I bet the ratings are going to be up on that segment. Oh, I bet you more 18 to 49-year-olds were watching this one because, that match just slapped. No, man, those numbers are practically meaningless to the viewing audience because we're not buying advertising on Raw or Dynamite or any of these programs. Like we're not using those numbers.
That's not
to pay
us.
For advertising. That's for the network to sell ads, which makes more money for wrestling. And for people who want the WWE to go out of business, or they want AEW to go out of business, I mean, just look what's happening now in the industry, where promotions like Ring of Honor, who in my heart did the right thing by taking care of their talent during the middle of a global pandemic, are now reduced to changing the whole demographic and releasing talent because they can't afford to stay in the state of business that they were doing. And when you want the other promotion to die or to go away, it doesn't hurt Vince McMahon. He's already made his money. He's a billionaire. If he sold his company tomorrow, he would be twice as rich as he is right now. If they were to go out of business, he'd still be a billionaire. He isn't going to sink his last dime into that company. He doesn't have to. But when Ring of Honor, owned by a $1 billion corporation, decides to go out of business, those people are losing their jobs. Forget the promotion. The people are out of a job. And that also means there's less places for people to leverage higher paying gigs because there isn't any more. There are less now places for you to work.
And it does. Wrestling businesses going out of work does not help the wrestling business for those coming behind it. WCW went out of business when they still were the highest rated shows on the Turner networks. ECW on a smaller scale was, TNN, the Nashville network it was a shit network.
Yep.
That only appealed to one demographic, and
those fans weren't watching ECW.
Yeah, they weren't, and then they put ECW on for a year, and we all know the horror story there, but still, it was the highest rated show, and that went out of business. Nobody wanted to touch, outside of WWF, nobody wanted to touch pro wrestling for the longest time. Nobody wanted to. At USA, don't forget, Raw left USA, and USA said, if we can't have the number one, because they tried to put in the offer for ECW, but if we don't want the number one, we don't want it anywhere. We're going to go a different direction. Nobody wanted wrestling. That's why when TNA started up, they had to go, the pay-per-view route before they got a break on Fox Sports, which only lasted a year, and then Spike took them when WWE went back to USA. That's when Spike took them, but their focus was more on, UFC and whatnot. So pro wrestling still, didn't have its home, and you've seen ever since then, the Spike relationship, they kept downgrading to basically any cable system that just needed programming. But the deals were not they were losing money per deal on TV just to stay alive. I mean, it's no big secret. We talk about Ring of Honor. If Sinclair didn't buy the company, that it would have went out of business in 2009.
Yeah.
If Anthem didn't get the company, TNA would be dead. They'd be out of money.
And if Billy Corgan didn't buy the NWA, then the NWA would be nothing more but independent wrestling and a shitty version of the territory system.
And with a pandemic that occurred, I mean,
very easily could have.
Yeah, it would have been a wasteland.
Very easily could have been the end of the NWA.
Yeah, and thankfully Tony Khan had his connections, through the Khan family and everything, to get a spot on TNT. But he openly admits, like, hey, if we didn't sign those extensions at the time we did, the company would have went out of business, because the pandemic, the money from those contract extensions went out is what paid for AEW through the pandemic. So it makes it doesn't help anybody. And you see in the aftermath, if you were alive during that time, yes. If you're alive during that time, you saw the aftermath of WCW going out of business. And if you followed some of the wrestlers and whatnot, and especially ECW going out of business, some of these guys took a turn for the worst. So it's never good for a wrestling company to go out of business, because if you go out of business, the world is harder for those behind you. And I mean, again, Ring of Honor, the best deal that they could get for TV, it was HD Net, which was like I said, third tier on your cable company before Sinclair. I mean, Ring of Honor would have been out of business over a decade ago.
And well, it's kind of funny because HD became Anthem, because Anthem bought HD too.
Yeah.
But our buddy Dave's promoting wrestling for the last 12 years here locally in Southern California, and really longer than that. But his show has been on a local market here in Los Angeles for 12 years. But the show has also been in syndication in different markets, on Tough TV at various points, on the Lucas Oil,
the Mav
TV, thank you. And it's been on different programs, but it's hard to get that big money deal because, again, nobody was really investing in wrestling that's not connected to Vincent Kennedy McMahon. So we don't want anybody to go out of business. No, we want the exact opposite. We want to see more wrestling. And we're starting to see that. We're starting to see more companies come to the top. New Japan Strong is kind of starting to make their way in the United States. They're doing bigger events. We're seeing Game Changer Wrestling kind of open up itself to the world. MLW's kind of doing their own thing. The NWA has been producing. They're talking about a second show for that brand. AEW's literally creating so much content every week, it's hard to keep up. And of course, the WWE is still just pumping out content all day, every day. So, along with Impact too, I don't want to take away from them. It's really interesting to see where the wrestling world will be in a year from now. What do you think, Darryl? You think we're going to be in a better place in 1 year, or do you think it'll be worse?
Well, I think after the pandemic, we can't be any worse. But
don't tempt fate.
Yeah, but definitely we're in a better position now as far as pro wrestling goes than I'd say than we were since the Monday Night War era, where WCW and ECW went out of business. And the best thing about it is also we get different visions, different opinions of products and whatnot. You watch MLW, you get a different product, then you'll see a different product.
Yeah.
Then you'll see, I'll say, with everywhere else. WWE, their vision, where their product is going. AEW, you can pretty much sense the same thing with that. And Ring of Honor, especially after the pandemic, really relaunched themselves, started from scratch, found their new identity, going back to basics.
Yeah.
With focusing on the pro wrestling and the pure tournament really caught my eye there. And again, then you have the National Wrestling Alliance. I'll also say, I won't say, getting back to basics, but, just the simple, old school ideology of wrestling that can still work today.
Yeah, for sure.
You got different, like you said, Baskin Robbins, you got all your different flavors. The last thing pro wrestling needs is for these flavors to start being taken away and you're stuck with vanilla.
Yep.
And for the longest time, as far as a nationally televised touring brand, the brand, everybody else is copy paper. WWE is Xerox.
Yeah.
And we don't need that again, where there was only one place to make money, only one place to work, one vision that you have to go under. We do not need that again. We need our different flavors of ice cream, some more popular than others, but the option is still there.
Yeah, man.
We do not need pro wrestling to start going to lose that. It took us a long, long, long time to, I'll say, recover and get all these different options available again for everybody, not just regionally, not something you have to go out of your way to find it if you can find it, but all of it's available, especially with the free, easy ways to view it through Fight or YouTube or, whatever at a low cost. It's easier than it ever has been before to find it.
Yep.
We do not need to go backwards.
No.
That's my thoughts on that.
Well, that's going to wrap it up, guys. I hope you enjoyed this return of the Road Wild podcast with Jay, Cal, and Darryl. I'm not sure when the next episode will be, but of course, if you've already liked, follow, and subscribed, you'll know when the next episode is. But until next time, our friends, we'll see you at the matches. Have a good night.
Peace.
Thanks again for tuning in to the Alliance Blog Podcast, a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you won't miss any future episodes? We'd also like to remind you that we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on YouTube at the Alliance Blog. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, TikTok, and Twitch at the Alliance Blog. Remember, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is essentially your own. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.